Thank you all for waiting and settling in, and thank you for being here to talk about public interest support while you're at law school, and we'll definitely be talking about LRAP and public service loan forgiveness. My name is Amanda Prasuhn. I'm the Director of Public Interest Financial Support, and I work in the Financial Aid Office. And I also have with me here today a Berkeley Law alum, Shazzy Kamali, who's going to be talking about some of her experiences here. Shazzy, do you want to introduce yourself and just say a little bit about you? This is the one that's on.
Awesome. I'm just gonna mosey over so I can actually see everybody.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Shazzy. I am a Berkeley Law grad. I graduated in 2021. I currently work for Legal Aid at Work. It's an employment law nonprofit based in San Francisco, but we represent low-income workers across the state. And I used a lot of the programs that we're going to talk about today, and it's really important to me that you all know that money shouldn't be a barrier for your participation in the public interest field. It really needs you. It really needs a new generation of legal professionals, first-generation professionals, professionals of color. So I really want to empower you all to pursue this if it's something you're interested in.
Thank you. Building off of what Shazzy said, I want to just upfront reassure you of Berkeley Law's huge and strong commitment to public interest students and our public mission as a public university. And we're always trying to increase our support, infuse more money into our support to make it easier for you to do this type of work. So some things we've done recently, we've increased our summer funding grants, we improved our LRAP program a couple years ago, we launched our public interest scholarship program for new students 3 years ago. We now have minimum 3 public interest career counselors in CDO. It used to be 2, so we have more. And last year for our grads, we had more summer fellowships, more outside funded, like project-based fellowships, and more Berkeley Law funded post-grad fellowships than ever before. So let me talk a little bit about these different types of support networks that you'll have when you're here. So the first will be the types of funding you can access while you're here. I mentioned the summer EDLI grants. This is guaranteed summer funding for anyone that's working at a nonprofit, in government, or in judicial chambers over their summers. It's $5,500 for the first summer, $6,500 for the second summer, and if you happen to be getting any funding from an organization or maybe from a student org, you can add the EDLI grant on top of that up to a $10,000 cap. And like I said, it's guaranteed as long as you do 25 pro bono hours by April. It's a hugely utilized program. Like I said, over 300 students a year are accessing the EDLI grants. Shazzy, how was your EDLI grant experience and where did you do your summers?
Yeah, so I did my 1L summer, which is the summer after my first year of law school, in Policy Advocacy Clinic at Berkeley Law. It's one of the clinics that we have here, but it was like a summer internship. And so I did receive some funding through that, but then I also supplemented that with the EDLI grant. And so you'll find that it's actually pretty easy to do the 25 hours of pro bono throughout the year because a lot of the student extracurriculars qualify for that, like the SLIPs, which you probably have heard of. So just participating in those will meet that requirement, and then you fill out a form, say how many hours you did, and then it's pretty easy from there. And then my second summer, I also used it. I interned at the same place where I currently work now, which is Legal Aid at Work.
Wonderful, thank you. Another thing we have while you're here, so you may or may not have a gift aid package once you arrive and enroll in Berkeley Law, and that's 3 years renewable, guaranteed gift aid for you once you sign that agreement. But there are some ways to increase your scholarships, and one of them is our continuing student scholarships. These are primarily donor-funded scholarships that apply to particular interest areas of students. Every summer, we have applications open for Rising 2Ls and Rising 3Ls to tell us about themselves and apply for these scholarships. They can go up to $20K a year, and there are definitely the biggest scholarship we have is called the Phallic Public Interest Scholarship. It's just for public interest students, so I would definitely encourage you to access that. Did you get a continuing student scholarship?
I don't think so, but I will say I know people who did, and it really is beneficial and helpful, especially in the public interest field. Finding somewhere where you want to work after graduation is one thing, but then finding funding for that is another thing. So knowing that you always have Berkeley Law is like, actually, it helps.
Other types of funding that you can access, so we have bar study grants if you're going to be getting a Berkeley Law Fellowship. You can increase your loan eligibility and like your cost of attendance for bar exam fees. We also have a bar study loan that you can borrow here if you've maxed out your federal student loans. And Student Services has this legal conference fund that can provide you with funding to go to a conference or a symposium so that you can get access to those types of events. I also want to talk about our advising support. So I mentioned our dedicated public interest, public sector career team in CDO. You are going to be meeting with them to talk about your summer employment goals, your post-grad employment goals. They also, like aside from doing those one-on-one appointments, they do resume workshops, mock interviews, talking about what is professionalism in this type of career. And I've learned that this year is their first year doing a mentor matching program for 1Ls. They've been matched with a public interest attorney alum. So I think they're doing great work. Shazzy, what is your experience with CDO?
Yeah, I use Studio a lot. I think especially because I didn't have anyone in my family who went to law school or worked as a lawyer, so it was really helpful because I think there are so many professional norms that I was just concerned about knowing. Like, does my resume look okay? Is it like obvious like that I don't know what I'm doing? Like, how do I make it look like I know what I'm doing? And they were helpful with that. They also do mock interviews, and they facilitate a lot of the like summer internship program, like applications and interviews on campus, as well as like postgraduate stuff. So they're a good resource.
CDO is primarily primed to help you. I mean, they will help you with whatever career you want, but they're specifically experts in these types of public interest jobs. Clerkships, doing government employment after graduation or government honors program, direct legal service and legal aid jobs, public defense jobs, post-grad fellowships like the project-based equal justice work, SCADN fellowships, and also private public interest firms or plaintiff side firms. We're also here as financial aid advisors. I've met with some of you already to talk about LRAP, and you've met with our financial aid team. We're gonna help you figure out how to make law school work for you, where you can get the funding. We're gonna talk about if you have student loans, how you can manage them after you graduate with Berkeley Law's LRAP and public service loan forgiveness. And we are here to just talk about how to make everything work as a public interest lawyer. I would encourage you to, if you have questions about anything, whether it's now or when you're in school, to meet with people. We're super accessible here. So we have a field placement program team, the pro bono program team, academic skills program, faculty have office hours. So you can go meet with those folks. And what's interesting about Berkeley is that we have this dedicated public interest working group of staff and faculty who all come together to help plan these public interest events for you and make sure we're on the same page and supporting you in the way that we can. And there's a public interest support faculty committee that has student representatives on it, and they're also always working to make public interest more feasible for you all. So if you have any concerns, suggestions, there's always people to bring those concerns up to. Okay, let's also talk about the types of programming that you'll have access to once you're a student here. There are these like two key public interest marquee events. The first, on the first day of school, you'll be invited to a public interest and social justice orientation where we're gonna introduce ourselves, review everything, and you'll get to meet each other and those other people doing this work. And then the day before graduation, there's a public interest and pro bono graduation ceremony specifically for people who've done 2 summers in public interest work, are getting an award from us, have gotten a pro bono certificate or like a race in the law certificate. So we want to welcome you and honor you during your time here.
I graduated during the pandemic, so.
Oh, Shazzy, I'm so sorry. Okay, every day, as you also see on the billboard, what are they called? Bulletin boards, I'm sorry. On the bulletin boards outside, you'll see that there's events every day. CDO is putting on a ton of info sessions about just like what career options are there, how do the application processes work. We're doing financial aid info sessions. Every day there is some sort of guest speaker or panel of attorney practitioners and alums. You're gonna have like panels specific to your class year and that like unique timeline that you're working on. And then of course you'll have your affinity groups, your student orgs, your journals, and your slips that you will have general body meetings and meet with them. Shazzy mentioned like putting on these like career events. We have ways to make it easier for you to get a public interest job by sort of bringing people here to meet you. We have internship and career fairs where it's sort of like roundtable, tabling, people from different organizations will come and have a table and you'll just like walk around and get to meet them, learn about their different opportunities over the summer and after graduation. We have a public interest, public sector career fair every October, and then we just had the first plaintiff side career fair 2 days ago, which is kind of that type of structure. And then we also do like formal interview programs as well, and they can be on campus or virtual. And that's where you're like meeting one-on-one with someone who is hiring for a specific position. There's something called PIPS Day, which is a Northern California specific thing. Like all the Northern California law schools come together and have this career fair where you can like get your summer job in February. And then we also have fall on-campus interviews in September where there's, I think, a lot of like government positions and like plaintiff side law firms will come and hire people for summer spots.
But it is cool because federal stuff too. So it's nice that they'll come here and interview you, so you don't have to go over there. But yeah, so I will say that I used a lot of these. Like I did PIPS Day as a student, and I've also done it like as a recruiting attorney. And it's just a lot easier to. It's nice as a pipeline both for the students and for the attorneys because you know there's a process. You put out the call, and then you know applications will come in, and you can do interviews. So yeah, it's a good resource.
Great. Okay, the support will not stop once you graduate. After you have graduated and you're alum, you still have access to funding opportunities and advising opportunities, and I will go into that. The funding that you can get after graduation first starts with post-grad fellowships. In addition to like CDO helping you get the job that you want after graduation, helping you with those project-based fellowship applications, we do have some Berkeley Law funded fellowships as well. One is a year-long fellowship called the Public Interest Fellowship. It's allowed to just help you launch your career with an organization that maybe doesn't have the funding to hire a first-year attorney. And then we also have these shorter-term bridge fellowships. They're typically 4 months long, and I believe this is most often used by people who are going into public defense because public defender offices don't want to hire you until they know you've passed the bar. So this kind of helps you stay employed, stay starting out in a public defender's office before getting that full-on hire. I know that you have a fellowship experience that is not listed here, but related.
Yeah, so fellowship, so I did a fellowship, and fellowship just means like funding. So it means that you apply for a position and they're like, we'll hire you, but you gotta get your own funding. So you have these options as like a backup. If you're able to find a position, then you can apply to Berkeley Law and say, this is the organization, it's a nonprofit, they've accepted me, and then they can facilitate that. What I did is I had a fellowship with East Bay Community Law Center. So East Bay Community Law Center, which is one of the clinics at Berkeley Law, they found their own fellowship funding source. So when I applied, I was applying for that fellowship that they had already found, but I did have to like work with the funder and yeah, so that's just like examples of the different types of options that are available for public interest folks after graduation.
Yeah, and let's talk about the big thing, Berkeley Law's LRAP. So LRAP stands for Loan Repayment Assistance Program. If you didn't know, I'm gonna go through the full program for you so you can get some of your questions answered. But I will say, law school is incredibly hard to fund entirely with scholarships, gift aid, or your own money. So 90% of people who recently graduated have borrowed loans. It's a very common way to do this. But I want to reassure you that no matter how much loan debt you leave Berkeley Law with, if you want to go into a public interest career, there are going to be programs out there to help you manage loan repayment and get rid of these loans. So let me first, okay, wait, I wrote them down. You're going to be utilizing 3 programs if you're doing public interest work and you are a Berkeley Law graduate. The first is federal income-driven repayment. Okay. Income-driven repayment, or IDR, is a federal program that's run by the Department of Education. And they say if you have federal student loans, you can enter into an income-driven repayment program where we're going to reduce your monthly payments. It's not going to be based on your loan debt. It's just going to be based on how much income you're making. I know for me, that has reduced my monthly payment by about $1,000 a month, so it makes it a lot more affordable. And you can even pay nothing under an IDR plan and still make progress towards PSLF. Shazzy, I'm gonna do a full rundown with you later. I wanna show you a little bit about what this can kind of look like. Imagine you're borrowing $200,000 of student loans. You have a $70K income. If you're on an income-driven repayment plan, like the new SAVE plan, your monthly payment would be about $300. Every month you are paying nothing to principal, you're paying $300 to interest. But under this new SAVE plan, there's no unpaid interest that accrues, and so your loan balance stays the same. Yay, that's better than it used to be, as Shazzy knows. The alternative to that is paying off your loans. And imagine if you're paying them off in a 10-year program, you're gonna have to pay, with this amount, this scenario, $2,200 a month on your loans. Half that's going to principal, half that's going to interest. But this is to illustrate how much less expensive it can be to do this type of option and how affordable it can be. Over the course of 10 years, what this might look like is if you're in that SAVE plan for 10 years with a $70K starting income, you might pay a total of about $52,000 over the course of those 10 years. And out of pocket with LRAP, that's gonna be lower. Your loan balance stayed the same, didn't go down at all, but that's the amount you're getting forgiven under public service loan forgiveness. If you're paying off that $200K balance over 10 years, you're gonna pay about $280,000. So don't feel like you must go to Big Law to do this. It is vastly more expensive to actually pay off the loans that you borrowed instead of just paying as little as you possibly can. Okay, the second program that I mentioned is Berkeley Law's LRAP program. It is for any JD grad who is in law-related public interest employment. That is very broad. You do not have to be a practicing attorney. You can do policy, advocacy, consulting, analysis, whatever, as long as it's law-related, and public interest employment is simply just not corporate law, super broad. We are gonna give you money to make your income-driven payments every month. We're either gonna cover all of it or some of it, depending on your income. All you have to do is enter within 3.5 years after graduation, and once you do that and meet that deadline, you have access to up to 10 years of LRAP support and LRAP funding from us. That's cumulative, so you don't have to do 10 years straight through. You actually have within 15 years of your graduation date to use those 10 years of funding. And everyone always asks me, is there a cap on how many people can get LRAP, or do I have to apply and be chosen? You have to apply to tell us how much your monthly payments are, but if you meet the eligibility requirements, you will get LRAP funding. You are not competing for it. If you want to do LRAP, you want to make sure that if you're able to borrow federal student loans, that's what you borrow. These are the loans that you don't need to go out and find them. They will show up in your Cal Central account if you fill out that FAFSA, and you'll be able to borrow them straight from there. What doesn't qualify for LRAP is like a private loan, a bar study loan, an older type of loan that might be called a Perkins or a Fell loan. What's great is there's no maximum amount of loan debt that LRAP can cover, and if you have loans from undergrad or like a master's program, we're gonna loop that into LRAP as well. And like I said, all law-related public interest employment, using your legal skills. Most people who are in LRAP are working in a nonprofit or in government, but our definition of public interest is kind of broader than the government's, so people in private public interest law firms, unions, international NGOs can qualify for our LRAP as well. Clerkships qualify for LRAP unless you are doing a one-year clerkship and then going to big law. That's the only time. So if you're doing a 1 year and you go to public interest, you're doing a 2 year and go to public interest. If you're doing a 2 year and go to a firm, that also counts. How much LRAP support you get depends on, one, what is your monthly payment amount, but also two, what is your income? So at Berkeley Law, we say if you're making 80K or less, you're gonna get full LRAP support, you're not gonna have to pay anything out of pocket. If you're making over 80K, that's when your contribution starts to kick in. What we do is, it's like a sliding scale, one formula for everyone. You pay 25% of your income over 80K to your loans out of pocket. LRAP covers the remainder of whatever your monthly payment is. And that goes up to our 120K income cap. We don't look at assets here at Berkeley Law, only just taxable income generating stuff. You might be married, you might be thinking that you will get married within 10 years after law school, so I wanted to briefly explain this. Our LRAP is like every LRAP. If your spouse makes more than you, we are going to average your incomes. If your spouse makes less than you, we're looking at your income. Not a problem for some people. For others who have a very high earning spouse, may interfere with your LRAP support, but there's these federal programs that you can still use. Being married also affects what your monthly payment is, but thankfully you can file taxes separately and only have your monthly payment based on your income. So being married doesn't automatically mean your monthly payment's gonna balloon. You can take leave from your work, whether it's unpaid or paid, and that time will count toward LRAP and public service loan forgiveness. And then if you have a dependent, one, that's gonna lower your monthly payment amount because that's gonna be on your tax return. And two, we're going to take some deductions out of your income for LRAP so that your LRAP support can potentially increase. Example of what this might look like, if you're making 65K, monthly payment might be around 270. You are under 80, so you don't have an LRAP contribution, we're giving you 270 a month. If you're making 85K, your IDR payment is probably about 440. You have an LRAP out-of-pocket contribution now that you're over 80K, and it's about $104 a month. So LRAP is stepping in with $336 a month to fill in that gap. And then if you were making 105K, IDR payment might be around $600. Your LRAP out-of-pocket contribution is now rising to $520 a month. LRAP support is decreasing, but you're still eligible. I think this is Atia Holly, who got public service loan forgiveness after using 10 years of LRAP support. She got that a couple years ago. I really think LRAP is such a great way to make this feasible, and I just want you to know that like these programs exist so that you all can do this work. I don't know the exact figures, but I think 75% of the people who apply to Berkeley Law say they want to do public interest work. That's not the number of people who are graduating and doing public interest work. So these programs and our support are here to help you not be one of those people that falls off. So if you are feeling hesitant, if you are feeling scared, please reach out and we will do our best to assure you. I'm gonna let you talk about this after I talk about PSLF, okay? So not only do you have lower payments from IDR, you have payment support through LRAP, there's federal public service loan forgiveness. We have a ton of Berkeley Law grads who've gotten PSLF. This was just from a panel that I did a few years ago. There's another panel on Monday with 4 more grads who are gonna talk about their experience with PSLF. But like income-driven repayment, it's a federal program managed by the Department of Education, and it says, in exchange for working for qualifying public service employment for 10 years and making minimum loan payments during that time, you can get your entire loan balance forgiven tax-free. And just like LRAP, that's a cumulative process. You don't have to do everything straight through, no breaks. It doesn't matter when you start working or stop working in this type of employment. And the federal government doesn't know, or the Department of Ed doesn't know or care if you were in big law. None of this matters. Just only your time in that qualifying service, qualifying public service employment. And what that means for the federal government is any 501c3 nonprofit and any government job, and that could be federal, state, local, tribal, and also your time in a judicial clerkship would count as well. You have to be working at least 30 hours a week, and you have to be employed. You're not an independent contractor or someone unaffiliated with the organization. There is no income cap for PSLF, so if you are making a good amount of income in a federal government job, you're out of LRAP, public service loan forgiveness still there for you. Last time I checked, about 800,000 people had been approved for PSLF so far, almost at that 1 million mark, which feels so good. It's discharged over $56 billion in student loan debt, so the program is working, off to a rocky start, I know, but it's going up. I've worked with dozens and dozens of Berkeley law grads who've gotten PSLF. I have never worked with a grad who didn't get PSLF, who wanted it. It's gonna work for you if you want it to, but know going into it, you have to be dedicated to that 10 or more years of that qualifying public service employment. If that's not what you're envisioning for your career, maybe you don't want to take this path. You have to know the PSLF requirements. You have to stay on top of your loans. And there are loan servicing companies that the Department of Education contracts with to manage your student loans, and they're quite bad at the job. So you might have to start up a dispute with them, but you will be able to do it. You will be a lawyer. You can do it. I also want to assure you that PSLF is stable. It's not going away. It is something that if it was removed, Congress would have to do that. They can't get anything together, so it's great, it's fine. Plus, any proposals we've seen from sort of an unfriendly administration have included a legacy provision for people who are existing loan borrowers. So you will become a loan borrower this summer, okay, great, you're in. And thankfully, the past 4 years, PSLF has only gotten better, which is fantastic. We hope a lot of these changes stick, but regardless of the administration, PSLF will be there. Shazzy, I would love for you to talk a little bit about your experience with student loans, with LRAP, PSLF. How does it feel? What's it been like in these past couple of years for you?
Yeah. Sure. Okay, so I applied for LRAP right after graduating. I will also say, I'll just open by saying that my experience, I graduated in 2021. That was during the student loan pause, on the interest payments, on the interest accumulation, and if you have concerns about the stability of this program or Berkeley Law's ability to weather that storm, I feel like Amanda has been a really good resource and has been pretty on top of it, of figuring out all of the chaos that was coming from the federal government and Supreme Court decisions on these issues, which it's I just can't escape it, I guess. And so, yeah, I had some student loans from undergrad, and then I also had student loans when I finished Berkeley Law. And I'll just be totally candid and say everything so you can get a sense of how it works. Please keep it to yourselves and all of the people who are watching this recording. So yeah, I had about $90K in student loans, and then my income when I graduated was around $67K, and so my monthly payment was around $383 a month. And so Berkeley Law paid for all of that every month. So all I had to do was apply with my loan servicer with the right income-driven repayment program, and they tell you which type of program to apply with. So I did that. They ran the numbers, and they were like, this is what your monthly payment is going to be. And then I gave those documents to Amanda, and they were like, okay, here is your contract term. So basically what that means is that Berkeley Law will tell you that they will give you an amount of money to pay for your monthly income for like whatever the contract. It's generally a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, generally a year. So they'll give you that amount for a year. And then once the year has passed and you show them that you were making your monthly payments every month, then they will forgive the loan that they gave you. So what that means is that you can use this program. If your income changes, then like if my income went up past 80,000, then Berkeley Law wouldn't pay for all of my monthly payment. They would pay for like a portion of it. And so that's the Berkeley Law piece. And then public service loan forgiveness in the federal program doesn't really affect you until it's been 10 years. Once it's been 10 years and you've been making 10 years worth of payments, then you can apply and say like, hey, look, federal government, I did 10 years of payments and I was in qualifying employment the whole time. Can you forgive what's remaining on my loan balance? And they'll say yes, because you met the requirements of PSLF. So what LRAP does is it kind of is like that buffer before you can get to those 10 years of payments to help you get there so that you can actually make those qualifying payments. And I'll just say, for me, it has made a really big difference to not have to pay $383 a month towards my loans, because I honestly don't think that I would be like able to pursue this otherwise. And by this, I mean like public interest employment. I know I sound like a shill, but I really believe in this stuff. Like,
I do too. I don't want to lie to you. And you are going to do public service loan forgiveness, right? You're going to apply
yeah.
in 8 years or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Okay, wonderful. Me too. Okay, I have one very last piece, and then we can have like 10 minutes of questions. But you can also access Berkeley Law's advising services after you graduate. CDO continues to be here for you if you're thinking about a career transition. You know, if like you're going to big law, now you want to go back into public interest, they can work with you there. If you want to get a mid-career clerkship, which is apparently becoming more common, you can work with them. And also, like what I've done in the past is I'm thinking about a job change. I kind of want to talk with an alum who's at that job. CDO knows all those people, so you can work with them. We have a development and alumni relations team who is going to invite you to events in their city so you can meet with admitted students, current students, donors, other alums. And then our financial aid office, we continue to advise you, whether you're in LRAP or not, but certainly if you're in LRAP, we're going to be talking at least once a year. And if you just have questions about PSLF, loan repayment, all of that, we're going to answer it. So the point of all of that was to show you how much we want to support you and make this feasible for you. I would love to answer any questions that anyone has with the remainder of our time. I saw you first, yeah.
So my question is kind of about like getting involved in public interest and then maybe getting a big law job and then returning to public interest. So like say within 3.5 years you each have a public interest job. Does that mean that you kind of like switch jobs and then when you resume a public interest job you continue paying? Like how does that work?
Do you mean if you start off in big law or if you're like doing like public interest, big law, public interest?
or just like switching.
Like
It's
that's
in general.
the thing. I'm just curious, like as long like based on the requirements, as long as you do public interest job within 3.5 years,
Yeah,
potentially that you could
yes.
do it, so you could hypothetically switch.
Yes, that's correct. So all you have to worry about is that 3.5 year deadline to get into LRAP for the first time. Once you're in, you apply when you're eligible. You don't apply when you're not eligible. So you can leave LRAP for any amount of time, thinking about that 15-year total sort of time limit that you have, and you just come back. So that's completely fine to go in and out. And you will pick up where you left off. Same with public service loan forgiveness. You're not like kind of having to go back to zero if you went to a firm for a couple years. You'll continue going on. You.
Okay. So in the panel discussion with current students, I learned about an additional financial resource called CalFresh, and obviously cost of living in California is pretty significant. So in addition to those like Edley grants for the summers, what financial resources are there for just living in California?
Aubrey, do you have anything to say about CalFresh? Okay.
I'll just,
Do
yeah,
you-
I know grad students who did use CalFresh when they were here, and you can, it seems like it's pretty easy to apply. Like you can go to the CalFresh website and like follow those steps. And I can't really speak to like the financial aid. I know there's like programs that you can apply to here, but then also like were you thinking like during the summer or during the school year or both?
During the school year, I know it's so much more expensive to live here, and so if
Yeah.
there's anything that like additional support within the college institution and also just like California and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Talk to our financial aid office because they know about all of this stuff. But I would say, like, you know, you have your Berkeley Law gift aid package for, as an incoming student, you have those continuing student scholarships. There's outside scholarships and fellowships that you can apply for. If you are like a graduate student researcher or instructor, your tuition can be reduced. Yeah. You, in like, not your 1L, but if you're in 2L or 3L, you can like have a paid job, which some people do, like go off part-time and do that. And I guess last, become a resident in your 2L and 3L year if you're not already, which is going to drastically reduce your tuition costs.
Two pretty quick questions. Do the $80,000 and $420,000 mark raise with inflation? And then also, how common is it for people to stay in LRAP for like the majority of like a 10-year period, or do people like kind of like bail out as they further along?
Yeah. So we update our LRAP program pretty frequently. We've committed to updating it every 3 years, or at least looking at it every 3 years and seeing, is it still workable? Do we have the budget to make changes to our program? We last updated it in 2022. I anticipate that probably by the time that you enter it, it's gonna look different and be better. I mean, based on inflation, based on what are the starting salaries that our graduating students are seeing, what is like the Alameda County poverty index looking like? So we're looking at a lot of data and also your experiences as well. I don't know or remember the exact figures on like the attrition rates of LRAP, so I'm sorry it's not totally scientifically accurate. I will say people start to phase out, not everybody, but like year 5, it's like, okay, some people are starting to get to that 120 and kind of dropping off. Or maybe they're getting married and their spouse has a high salary and they're dropping out of LRAP. There are many people that I'm working with right now, though, on their PSLF application who are still in LRAP. So it's certainly not like everybody's gone by 10, especially if you're in a type of career like at a nonprofit that's maybe not a national nonprofit. You may never get to that 120 and you can keep using LRAP. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'll just say, like, I know that the income has changed, like the cap has changed while I've been here. It was 80,000, and I'll just say, like, I work for a Bay Area nonprofit. A lot of the Bay Area nonprofits are unionized, and so the salary scales are like publicly available, and you can like look them up. And so that is something where the CDO and like the financial aid office is aware of what the starting salaries are, because it's like very much public accessible information.
Yeah, and that's useful. Yeah.
Where do like intergovernmental organizations fit into that qualifying measures, like the ICJ, the ICC, that are like?
What I would say is fits into Berkeley Law's LRAP. Again, it's like anything law-related public interest would not fit within public service loan forgiveness because it's like 501c3, US-based government type of stuff. So if you were thinking about, I know people considering international human rights careers then maybe won't do PSLF, or maybe it's something where you're like, I'm gonna do that to launch something as a temporary measure and then I'm going back into PSLF qualifying employment. Yeah. Yeah.
For the public interest scholarship, though it's postgraduate through Berkeley, does that apply for international work in like international nonprofits?
You mean like someone who's interested in international work, could they get the public interest scholarship?
Not the scholarship, the fellowship, sorry.
Oh,
The one that's like a year.
oh, like Berkeley Law funded? I think. I don't know the mechanics of CDO's fellowship program. I would ask them, and they're gonna be able to help you with this type of career transition choice anyway. Yeah.
So
So you might have mentioned this, but I might not have heard. But if you did a master's, or if you were in Berkeley Law and in your first year you decided you wanted to start a concurrent program, would LRAP cover that
Yeah.
too?
Yeah, it's like any federal student loan, because it's all gonna be wrapped up with one loan servicer, one monthly payment that we're gonna help you with. Yeah.
Would getting a field placement somewhere outside the Bay Area affect residency? If that's like going to be for a semester or so, or next semester?
No, I mean, it could, but what I'm thinking is you're not gonna do that in your 1L year because you're gonna be here. So like, if you're here that whole 1L year, you can get residency in your 2L and 3L. And then I think once you gain residency, are you like at risk of losing it?
Is this like residency for tuition?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. I don't
Did they keep asking you about your residency, or was it like a one-time thing?
I went to, like, I'm from California,
Oh.
so I don't know, sorry.
Every year you have to complete the statement of legal residence.
Okay. What I will say is our financial aid team knows a lot more about this. I'm like an offshoot of them, okay? I don't know the full regulations. But you had, like, there's basically these little like requirements you have to do, and it's like, do you have a residence here? You have an apartment? Do you have intention to stay here? Like, you did your car registration in California, you got a driver's license here, your voter registration is here. If you maintain those things, and I'm not saying pay double rent, but if you like sublet your apartment while you're away in a field placement, then you don't have to really talk about that you left. Ask them. Plead your case. I think you're gonna be okay, but work with our team. Yeah. Any more? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could talk more about support for public interest students who don't want to stay in California after graduation.
Yeah, I mean, it looks essentially the same. Like our CDO team is knowledgeable about careers that are everywhere. At our career fairs, it's national employers, so it's not just like only Bay Area stuff. And I think, I think we maybe have like 50% of people like stay in California after they graduate, not only because the most populous state that's coming to Berkeley Law are people from California, but also it's great to stay here. But you will not be alone if you head off to a different market, and you will get the same level of support that you need for that. Yeah.
There's a thriving alumni network in like New York and different parts of the country. There's representation from non-California orgs, I think at PIPSD and like
Yeah.
other CDO events. If you're interested in like a particular organization or field, you can tell CDO and they'll like look to see if there's anyone that they could know of who can like help you specifically with that work.
Yeah. I think if there's anyone with one last question before I wrap up, I can answer. No one? Okay, thank you all so much for coming, and hope you have a wonderful day. See you at the reception. Appreciate you all.